I'm I'm so happy to be here, especially on the 70th birthday of this institute. Happy birthday to this institute. And I hope, yes, you are young, that is why. And I'm just wondering why the birthday cake is not there. It is necessary, but I hope this institute will continue to do the good work they are doing, and I congratulate for whatever they are doing. And yes, we are proud of you. And thank you very much, Dr. Kameshwari Madam, to call me here and allow me to participate in such a fantastic program and be with these august people here. Great. Thank you so much. Dr. Braja Kishorji spoke, he focused on Manusmriti, and it was such a good paper. Naturally, means I said that I don't have to say anything about his paper. It was really very good, congratulations. And same goes with Dr. Shankar Narayan, and they both have focused on the one text, and it is really very good because you get the total abstract of it. And I'm very much thankful because I came to know about many new things, especially in the Kautilya Arthashastra. My paper is actually, when you will listen to my paper, you will find that you have already heard many things before, but then you will excuse me for that because Dharma Shastra is the same. And we all three have taken from Manusmriti, Gautam Dharma Shastra, and Yajnavalkya Smriti, all these Smritis. So they are the base of our Dharma Shastra. We cannot ignore it. My paper is, another thing I wanted to talk about it, that environment. Environment is something, means if you consider yourself at the center of something, then everything happening around you, all the static and moving things about you, around you, the nature around you, human beings around you, animals around you, and everything, whatever is there, is your environment. And environment is something which connects you to all these things. Think about spokes of the cycle wheel, and you are there at the hub and you are connected with so many, even minutest of the things and greatest of the things. That is the environment. Ecology is something, actually recently I was reading a text about the quantum physics, and it says that even a minutest of the nanoatom, it moves, and the whole universe moves with it. Though we do not really realize, because whatever is happening, we are not very much alert about all these things. But in our Vedanta also it is said that suppose a blade of grass is moved, it is broken, it is destroyed, then the whole universe also moves with it, and something is broken which is not replaceable. And that is the ecology. Ecology is the relations between the things, animate and inanimate. And this relation, if one little link in the chain is broken, then the whole chain stands worthless. So ecology is, today people are realizing the importance of ecology because of that. Because if you destroy one thing, you know that there were trees growing in the Mauritius, the beautiful, I don't remember the name, probably one of you might be remembering it, but the British soldiers, they killed the dodo birds. Now those dodo birds, we only have some pictures about the dodo, what exactly they were, we do not know. These dodo birds used to eat the seeds of the trees, and then it would go into their stomachs and come out, and after that the seed becomes soft and it is uncovered, and then it would sprout. But dodo birds are killed, all the dodo birds are killed, and now there is no new trees for almost a long century. And there is no hope of begetting those trees again, and that is ecology. You break one link and the chain stands worthless, and that is ecology. So my paper, it is environmental and ecological concept. Environmental and ecological concerns sound very much modern, but when one goes back to history and ancient texts, one definitely finds many clues which lead to believe these concerns were there in the past as well. These notions can be seen clearly in the Dharmashastra text. Dharmashastra and Smriti literature basically lay the rules for society. Almost all aspects of life are considered in it. One thing I would like to explain before I really read my paper is the Smritis are meant to have three parts. The first part is about achara. It means it prescribes not describing, but prescribes what one should do, how one should behave in a society. Again, ecology, because every person is connected with so many other persons. A boy is connected as a son to his parents, a boy is connected to his friends as a friend, and he is a student of his gurus. So every person is connected with so many other persons. Again, ecology. So it is the achara. You cannot do whatever you want in a society, whether you are in school, wherever you are. So these are the rules, general rules that how one should behave in a society, and which is the right conduct and right behavior. The second part is rather harsh, vyavahara. It not only prescribes, but they are acts and laws. And there are very clearly 18 titles of laws in the major Smritis, that is the Manusmriti, Yajnavalkya Smriti and Narada Smriti, including the formation of the court, formation of the assembly or the court. And the third part is Prayashchitta. About the laws, we know everyone that if police catches you, then he will just put you inside and then the case will go on. That was very much there. But Prayashchitta is something very interesting concept. There are so many things, so many faults, so many blemishes, and so many mistakes we commit where a police cannot catch you. Suppose you are just walking on the road and you simply pluck the leaves or the flowers, and police cannot catch you. If you are plucking 2 leaves or 2 flowers, somebody will say that, oh, don't do it. But otherwise, police cannot catch you. For that kind of behavior, you have to remember that you cannot replace the life. And that is why you have to take the punishment yourself. It is called atonement. It is called Prayashchitta. So these are the 3 parts of the Smritis, and I will be just taking few things from that which are concerned with the environment. It is Dharma Sutras are the manuals of human conduct that form the earliest source of Hindu law. Dharma Sutras are emerged from Kalpa auxiliary limb of Vedas. These later expanded into Dharma Shastra. Dharma Sutras deal with human beings in their social, economic and religious relations. They are composed in prose, in sutras, that is the maxims form. They were intended to be committed to the memory and expounded orally by the teachers. Dharma Shastras are composed in metered verses and more elaborate in their scope. All Dharma Sutras, Smritis and Kautilya Arthashastra etc. constitute the Dharma Shastra. Many aspects of the education in the ancient times teach us to live in eco-friendly way. Such eco-friendly lifestyle can be seen in Gautama Dharma Sutras. Education taught to depend on nature and preserve the nature. One cannot say that there was exact concept of ecological balance in Dharma Shastra or Smriti text, but the notions found are nevertheless not deviating from the concept of ecological balance. Ancient Indian education was intensive education pertaining to one single subject thoroughly. Such study continued for 12 years at the Guru's abode, approximately for 12 years. Students lived with their gurus until they finished their education. While students lived in Guru's abode, they led a lifestyle governed by certain rules. There were rules for the dress they wore. Dress was simple. All students were required to wear dhotis as garment down the waist. Deer hide was allowed to cover the upper part of body, which protected from the cold and drought. There are a number of Sanskrit quotations which I am going to avoid. Coloring the garment was allowed to certain extent. The colors obtained from certain plants and minerals like turmeric, yellow, for the yellow color, then geru, the soft red soil for the reddish color or the rust color, or the manjishtha, red plant extract, or manashila, red mineral to color the garment, if you like it. These materials are abundant in the nature. Their use do not affect the environment or pollute water. Students who wished to dye their clothes were expected to color themselves. Nobody else would do it. They had to do it for themselves. Students were expected to spin the yarn and weave their own clothes. This process of cleaning cotton and spinning yarn was started by Mahatma Gandhi. Everyone knows that. It was known like Jivan Shikshan. Today also many spin yarn at home and buy khadi cloth in return of that yarn. In Gujarat it is the practice. The Gurukula education taught many arts and crafts which were necessary in day-to-day practical life and which did not harm the nature. This lifestyle was necessary since the schools or Gurukulas of the yore were mostly situated away from the towns and cities. They were surrounded by forest. The land belonging to Gurukulas was tilled by inhabitants, that is students only. Students came from all layers of society, rich and poor both. Even princes of the land came to learn. We know that Rama and his brothers attended such school and lived humbly there. Krishna also went to Guru Sandipani's hermitage. Students did every kind of work there. Students baked alms and then for their Guru as well. They had to offer the alms to the Guru first and then they would take. Students were expected to share these alms with their Guru. This kind of discipline kept students humble and they understood the value of food and avoid wastage. This humble way of living once imbibed was never forgotten. This bridged the gap between rich and poor considerably. People lived within their limitations. They refrained from extravagant hoarding of goods. It relieved the pressure on natural sources in considerable way. Smritis gave thought to actual environmental preservation and ecological balance. Yajnavalkya Smriti has many rules which amaze us. Smriti literature is basically code of conduct or the general rules for the society. Most of these rules do not change over the time, but there certainly are rules which seem to change according to time. Smriti texts are divided into three parts which I have talked about. Today, with tremendous population and with understanding of sources, we are not careful for our water resources. I will be talking about water bodies first. So, Smritis prescribed strict laws against contaminating water bodies. Today we pollute every possible water source. with drainage and industrial effluent, and many other ways are there to contaminate the water today. And you know about the Ganga, cleaning of Ganga very well. Manusmriti has one rule, like one should not urinate or defecate or spit in the water. Any kind of dirt is not allowed to be thrown in the water. Kautilya's Arthashastra prefers to have running water, rivers, streams, etc. than lakes. Flowing streams provide fresh water to inhabitants, and also there is continuous provision for agriculture as well. Yajnavalkya Smriti totally prohibits the use of water bodies like rivers and ponds for bathing, cleaning body parts, throwing nails and hair, and any kind of dirt in the water. The rule speaks about its importance. The first rule is one must not urinate or defecate in the river, in the shade of tree, on the road, in the cattle shed, or in the water. Second rule is one must not spit in the water or throw blood, ordure, or urine or semen in the water. The third rule is one is not allowed to sail ponds, lakes, wells, and gardens. Shankar Smriti states that one should not defecate or urinate on the cow dung, the field which is ploughed and sowed, on the green grass, funeral pyre, cemetery, road, grain threshing place, hill, and sands by the river. Actually, there is one rule in Yajnavalkya Smriti that you should not take bath near a water body. At least the distance should be 400 hands. We should not. And today what is happening, that wherever we see the river, we take a dip in it. Then it is about the preservation of flora. We find several strict rules in Smriti literature to preserve flora. Manu has mentioned many rules not to cut trees in the form of atonement rules. Atonement, that is the prayashchitta part. They are, if one cuts fruit-giving trees, then one has to recite 100 ruchas, that is punishing your own self as atonement. Same atonement is for cutting shrubs, creepers, flowering plants, etc. Second rule is, if minute life forms bred in food, condiments, flowers, etc. are killed, then one has to take little quantity of ghee only and go without food for one day, that is fasting for one day, and that is the again atonement. If anyone destroys plants produced by cultivation or plants spontaneously grown in the forest without any reason, then that person will serve a cow for one day and fast for one day only with the milk. One should not go near the trees at night, and this rule we know very well because they emit carbon dioxide at night. All the trees, they emit carbon dioxide. Am I right, sir? Carbon dioxide. They emit carbon dioxide at night, and during daytime they emit the oxygen. So at night you are not allowed to go near the trees. There are fines ordained for cutting trees in Manusmriti. A fine must be inflicted for injuring trees and all other kinds of flora according to the usefulness of several kinds of trees. Second rule is a fine for stealing flowers, corn in the field, shrubs, small trees, and unhusked grain is 5 Krishnalas, that is the 5 gold or silver gunja. Smritis prohibit cutting trees, useful trees, tender leaves of trees, and fruit-bearing trees. There are many such rules in Yajnavalkya Smriti which show a deep concern about environment. Rule number 1 is, if one cut the tree which grow long and stout branches, or uproot the tree having the sprouts, or cut trees which are means of livelihood, then the person is fined. The fine begins with 20 panas and could amount to the double of that amount. Second rule is, in the case of cutting trees growing in a sacrificial place, a cemetery, a boundary, a sacred place, or a temple or well-known trees, the fine ordained is double than the prescribed in earlier rule. Well-known trees like Pippala, Palasha, Banyan, all these, the trees of the ficus family, they are not allowed to cut, and if anyone cuts it, then the hand or that limb is cut. If anyone causes injury to any part of gulma, gulma is a short, thick creeper, gucha, short shrub, kshupa, straight plant, pratana, creepers without knots or offshoots, lata, long creepers, oshadhi, plants that grow fruit like paddy plant, etc. And virudha, those plants, when cut, they grow themselves and develop again. The fine is 50% less than the earlier rule. One must not cut green trees for the sake of fuel. Though there are fines prescribed for cutting trees, there is also atonement prescribed for the same. Atonement for the culprit is reciting 100 ruchas for cutting trees, short, thick creepers and or long creepers. If one cuts fruit-bearing plants without any reason, then he should serve the cows for 1 day and take only milk as a food and abstain from taking the food. Kautilya Arthashastra has many rules which suggest that concern about environment was an important issue of the statecraft. Kautilya says that the director of the forest should make an enclosure for the deer, beasts and birds and wild animals. He should look after preservation of grass and fuel. Enclosure here means the place where these animals live in their natural habitat and do not come to human habitat and destroy crops. That is the sanctuary. These enclosures were forest planted and cultivated. The thinkers and rulers knew the benefits of such environments. Therefore, they were keen to grow and preserve the forest. It was part of state policy that forest should be grown on the border of the state. One should raise a thick forest rich in material where elephants can be raised. Then, this is in the chapter of pacts and treaties. A king should choose a land on the border which is watered by flowing river and which has easy means of livelihood. Such forest land becomes a refuge in the times of trouble. Kautilya's statecraft has created a post for the director of forest. Director of forest is supposed to nurture forest, have control over the produce of forest, and start factories for the forest produce. He is also authorized to fix dues for cutting forest produce. He also has authority in inflicting penalty if somebody goes in the forest and steals it. So there was a very strict security about the forest. These forests were planted with various kinds of trees like Shaka, Tinisha, Dhanvana, Arjuna. I am reading the names of the trees. Arjuna, Madhuka, Tilaka, Sala, Shivshapa, Arimeda, Rajadana, Shirisha, Khadira, Sarala, Tala, Sarja, Ashvakarna, Somavalka, Kusha, Amra, Priyaka, Dhava, all these. It means trees were planted according to the kind of wood they would produce and according to the species they are in. Other variety is reed group, that is variety of bamboo. It consists of Uttaja, Chimiya, Chapa, Venu, Vansha, Satina, Kantaka and Bhalluka. Then there is group of creepers like Vetra, Shikavalli, Vashi, Shamalata, Nagalata, all these. Then there is the grass like Malati, Murva, Arka, Shana, Gaveduka, Atasi, etc. And a finest kind of silk was produced from the Atasi. Kshauma everyone knows, but Atasi also is the plant. Yarn can be drawn from these plants for the purpose of weaving kinds of clothes. Munja, Balbaja, etc. are the varieties of grass which are used to make ropes. Today also people make ropes from the grass, certain kinds of grass. Leaves of tali, tala, bhurja were used for making plates for eating. Today also we make. eating and many other purposes. These trees and creepers were planted in forest created by the state. These forests kept the environment green. The products added to the revenue of the state. They became habitat for many wild animals and also many small animals. Again, we are coming back to the ecology. Small animals, then there are big animals and their food chain and everything. So these forests became habitat for many wild animals, also small animals, birds, insects and aquatic animals, which in itself formed an ecosystem. Kautilya Arthashastra also suggests that there should be separate enclosure for fuel and grass. Here, fuel means the trees which can be used as fuel. They were separately grown, means the trees in the cultivated forest were not allowed to cut. The forests were guarded closely. Guards escorted those persons who went into the forest to bring the forest produce and deliver it to the factories outside the forest area. It means grassland or fodder, trees grown for fuel and forest were totally different than the forest. Now I am talking about the fauna. There are rules which ordain punishment to wrongdoers about the animals. These rules show the concern about environment and ecosystem. Care for animals like elephants to tiny insects like ants are given attention in Manusmriti. They are, king should punish the thieves who steal big animals like horse, cow, elephant and medicinal plants according to time and purpose. One should walk on the earth observing carefully so that small insects and other life forms like ants etc. they are not killed. Atonement is a wonderful concept in Dharma Shastra. There always are mistakes and mishaps happening in our lives. Law does not catch you at that. Many times no one knows about it except the doer. One can easily shake off such guilt. But Dharma Shastra do not allow this to happen. It wants people to be conscientious and preserve life which cannot be replaced by you. Also, there are penances to be performed. These penances are self-inflicted punishments. These make people sensitive about the life forms. Manusmriti has laid down certain atonements for the killing animals and birds, etc. The rule number 1 is, if one kills a cat, mongoose, chash a bird, frog, dog, monitor lizard, owl and crow, then one has to perform atonement ritual for 6 months. Means one should be sensitive enough of our co-fellows cohabiting on this earth. Killing such small animals or birds was considered equal to killing a human being. Second rule is, a Brahmana should give a spade of iron in charity if he kills a snake. If one kills a boar, he should give a pot of clarified butter in charity, a drone of sesame for killing a partridge, and a heifer should be given to Brahmana if one kills a parrot. How careful they were. If one kills, fourth rule is, if one kills a swan or a crane or a heron or peacock or a monkey or a bhasa bird, then he will have to give a cow in charity to a Brahmana. Fifth rule is, one should give a garment in charity if one kills a horse. If one kills an elephant, then he will have to give 5 black bulls in charity. For killing a goat or a sheep or a donkey, one has to give 1-year-old heifer. The rule of black bulls shows the harshness of atonement. It would obviously be difficult to find black bulls, 5 black bulls at a go. One would have to take a lot of trouble to find black bulls, that also 5 black bulls, to complete the ritual of atonement. This rigorous atonement imbibes the seriousness of crime in the minds of people and the culprit itself. Sixth rule is, killing of carnivorous animals was prohibited. One would have to give a milch cow in charity. A heifer should be given for killing wild animals which are not carnivorous. One krishnala should be given for killing a camel. It is also mentioned, seventh rule, in Manusmriti that a Brahmana cannot atone the killing of a snake or other animals just by giving something in charity. The Brahmana are supposed to be the most knowledgeable people of the society, and a knowledgeable person cannot really commit anything, any mistake, and so he is not allowed just to shake it off that, okay, I have killed a snake and I will give one garment and forget about it. No, it won't do. So he will, therefore, he should perform penances like Kruchra. Kruchra Vrata is supposed to be very difficult one. So he has to perform, because other people, other illiterate people or less knowledgeable people, if they commit something, it is excusable. But person who is knowledgeable and he commits something, no, it is not allowed. Kautilya Arthashastra has made it a rule that there would be enclosures for wild animals and birds. Here, and also enclosure means sanctuary for the animals. There are rules which ordain punishment to the wrongdoer about the animals. These rules show the concern about environment and ecosystem. Care for animals like elephants, all these we have gone through. Then, Manusmriti has number of rules for the preservation of the general environment. Like, every day one should offer little part of one's food to the dogs, birds, insects, sick people, and downtrodden people. Importance of food is well understood by Smritis. This food should not be thrown but put down on the earth carefully. See, showing the respect means just you have the roti in your hand and you throw it. No. The dog also is a living being. So you have to put carefully where there is no dust, and that also on some leaf or something, so he can eat it, the clean food. There is a long list of birds and animals which should not be eaten. Background of these rules is very interesting. Manusmriti says, one who kills non-violent animals for his own pleasure, he does not get any happiness either here or hereafter. He who does not cause bondage, killing and torture of animals and think of their happiness, indeed attains the happiness hereafter. One cannot get the flesh to eat unless one kills animals. Means it is not, flesh does not grow on the earth like the rice or paddy. But you have to kill somebody so that you can have the pleasure of eating the flesh. Killing animals would not get heaven for one. Therefore, one should stop eating flesh. All animals are born of flesh. Therefore, their experience of suffering and pain when killed and put in bondage. Thinking carefully about this, one should abstain from eating flesh. This is so logical. Means, we have to understand the pain. If even one little hair, if it is just plucked from our head, we feel so much of the pain, and think about the animal which is being killed. Dharmashastra, all animals are born of flesh, therefore their experience also should be considered. Dharmashastra literature also creates inner ban for killing. It speaks about sin and merit and its fruit. These are the inner bans actually, inner boundaries. Killing is sin. One who wants to nourish his flesh with the flesh of others is indeed a sinner. Even they are called assassins, slayers, ghataka. He who consents, who kills, who cuts limbs, who sells and who buys, who prepares and who brings for eating, one who eats, all these are assassins. All these rules show the concern for environment as well as ecological balance. This is the reason for the following long list of animals and birds which are prohibited to eat. It is, one should not eat birds like vultures, doves, and other birds which seem to include all other birds. The whole hoofed animals, sparrows, watercock, swan, charvaka, chataka, hens and cocks, cranes, wild animals, wading animals, parrots, woodpecker and duck, whose feet are webbed, hawk, raven, fishes, dogs, etc. And snakes and monkeys should not be eaten. That means almost all the category of animals and birds is not to be eaten. Existence of all these birds and animals is interdependent, and that is why, and that is again we come back to ecology. Yajnavalkya Smriti has also prohibited killing of animals. It is obvious from many rules laid down by Yajnavalkya Smriti, such as the first rule: if one kills animals like cat, monitor lizard, mongoose, frogs, small birds like sparrow, blue jay, and then one should drink milk at one night for 3 days, and 3 days one has to fast. And during daytime, walk for 8 miles. Second rule is if one kills an elephant, he should give 5 black bulls. The same rule we have seen as it is in the Manusmriti. If one kills a parrot, then 2-year-old calf should be given in charity. If a donkey, goat or sheep is killed, then 1 bull should be given, or a 3-year-old calf should be given in charity. The third rule is if one kills animals like tiger, monkey, fox, birds like eagle, falcon, hawk, vulture, etc., and aquatic animals and wading birds like crane and land birds like peacock, etc., he should give 1 cow and a calf in charity. All these rules point towards a very sensitive approach to the ecological balance. The birds and animals and aquatic life forms mentioned here are not all pet or tamed animals which live in human habitat. Many of them are living in the wild, and most of them are more useful